Hello, this is Ben119 and welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to carry on with my Twilight Princess HD dungeon design series. So we're up to dungeon number 9, which is actually the final dungeon in the game, and this is the first part of dungeon number 9, and it is Hyrule Castle. I like to call it Ganondorf's Castle because it is the final dungeon, and Hyrule Castle just seems like, I don't know, I'd rather just call it Ganondorf's Castle. But here we are. So this dungeon's pretty cool, and I'm going to talk about this dungeon more as a final dungeon. I will still talk about different elements of it, but obviously as a final dungeon it's important to talk about certain aspects of it because, yeah, it's the final dungeon. And there's going to be some differences, like for example there's no dungeon item because obviously it's the final dungeon. There's no main item that we're going to be getting here. So there's a lot of combat in this dungeon, as you can see right off the bat. So there's a lot of enemies that I guess are hard. So we have the pink bokoblins, and the pink bokoblins in Twilight Princess actually have the most health. They actually have more health than Lithubs, by the way. It's just that with the Great Spin you can take them out in one go, which I think is a little bit silly. I think if you could take them out a bit quicker with the Great Spin it'd be fine, but I think taking them out in one go just seems a little bit too overpowered. I do like the Great Spin and the hidden skills, but I think sometimes they can just be a bit too powerful. So we're in this room here to the right. I'm not sure if you saw, but there was a door to the left, and in the middle we needed a key to get through that door. So we're going to go to the right first. We can go to the left after going to the right, don't worry. So in this room here, well, it's basically like an outside room. There's a bunch of bokoblins, and there is some sniper towers with some bokoblins on there as well. I think they're called bokoblins, aren't they? The ones with the bows. So I'm just going to call them all bokoblins. So we're going to go around here, and we got some of these like pigs, like these warthogs. And basically we can ride on them. This was shown off way earlier on in the game, but it's pretty cool how you actually have to use it here to break through these gates. It's a pretty clever mechanic. It kind of makes sense as well because there is a bunch of these enemies about, so you can understand why these would be here. Like, this dungeon does make a lot of sense, like, because they probably want to have loads of enemies guarding the castle because they've taken over it. Like, it just doesn't make sense for some dungeons why there's enemies there. Like, City in the Sky, like, why is there just loads of enemies living there? It just seems a bit weird to me. Or like the water dungeon, like why is there so many enemies underwater? How the hell did they even get there? But with this dungeon it does make sense. So we come into this room here, and something I didn't really mention is there's a part we can dig into. And it actually takes us to the secret graveyard, and I'm not sure how many people even know about this. Well, you must know about it if you've 100%ed this game, because it's a requirement to 100% the game. But if you're not using a guide, this would be super hard to find. I don't even remember how I found it when I first played through this game. I think I just got shown it by someone. So the hidden graveyard's pretty cool. If you know what you're doing, it's pretty easy. So right here, there's a rock that you can destroy. It's a bit hidden because it's it's like clipped into the ground. So you can only see the top of it sticking out. So if you basically press this switch, it opens this gate over here, and there's a bunch of chests in here. And we can get some rewards. And basically the reward for completing the hidden graveyard is we get a small key. And that'll give us an extra small key. So then when we get to the very end of the dungeon, there's a hidden room we can actually access with a bunch of chests. I'm not going to spoil what's in there, but basically we can access something that we wouldn't usually be able to access by doing this section. So there's some more enemies here. These enemies are pretty easy, to be honest. You can just take them out with bomb arrows. We saw some of those skeletons in Arbiter's Grounds, so I guess that's pretty cool. I like this mechanic here. It is pretty clever how you can turn off the rain by lighting a torch. I have no idea why that works. Really weird weather mechanics. It's not used anywhere else in the game, but I guess it's a pretty cool idea. I think this could have been used more in the game, having puzzles where you have to wait for it to like not be raining, and then you could use your jack-o'-lantern to light things up. See, as you can see now, it started raining again, so they've been put out, so you have to do that quite quick. It kind of reminds me of Breath of the Wild, because in Breath of the Wild sometimes you have to wait for certain weather conditions, and then you can do certain things, like there may be a mountain that you can't climb because it's raining and you have to wait for the rain to stop. Or you may be lighting up some torches and it's raining and it keeps putting the torches out, so you have to wait for the right weather conditions. Like, it's pretty cool how they implemented that here, but it's not used anywhere else in the game. But it's pretty cool how they noticed that. There's a lot of little enemies around here. Enemies are not going to be your problem around here. I think your problem is just figuring out everything to do. But if you copy in this guide, it should be easy. So take these statues and you can take them to this area over here. And when you put them into these slots, you're able to use them for something, which you'll see in a minute. I think it's a pretty cool final dungeon. I like how it uses loads of different items. Like right here, we're using the Dominion Rod. It's a lot better than the Palace of Twilight dungeon. Because even though the Palace of Twilight dungeon, I did say like a lot of negative things, it doesn't really use the items very well. And I'm just glad that this dungeon uses them quite well. It doesn't use every item, obviously, but it uses quite a lot of items, and there is some pretty good puzzles once we get into the interior. And there is some good stuff in the outerior, I guess you could say, or the outside of the dungeon. So here we go, we got the small key. It's pretty cool you have to lift up that gate. It kind of reminds me of like Arbiter's Grounds, having to do that kind of thing. So we got the key, and that is the key I was on about. So we can leave here, we got all the chests in here. And even on the map, it's like placed on the opposite side of the map. I think it's placed over to the left on the map, even though we're on the right. Something I'm not sure if I've even mentioned throughout this whole playthrough is that if you're playing on hero mode, the graphics, not the graphics, but the whole game is going to be in mirror mode. So when I do say things like on the left, make sure you are playing the original. If you're playing hero mode, then everything's going to be flipped to what I'm saying. So this is a cool puzzle right here. So if you remember the very first dungeon, there was a switch puzzle we had to do to get the boss key. And we had to hit a certain switches in a certain order. And basically we have to do the same thing here with these switches. So on the ground there is a Triforce, and you have to like take the leaves off with the boomerang, and when you take them off you can actually see the right order to hit them in. So if you're wondering how I got that right, it's because of that picture there. I was just looking at it a minute ago. So there you go, it gives you access to this chest here. And inside here's a map. So if you want to just get through this dungeon and kill the final boss, you actually don't even need to access this right half of the dungeon, you can just go to the left. But if you want to 100% it all, you can do that. This dungeon's a bit weird. As you can see, like the 3rd, 4th and 5th floor, they're all really small, they don't have much going on. But you'll see why later on. It's basically the 1st and 2nd floor that have the most stuff, especially the 1st floor. Because it's like all the outside part. Like the outside is like one of the biggest parts of the dungeon. So we've done pretty much all of the right side now, so we're going to head back on this side here. I wish there was maybe more to do in the courtyard. Like I wish like some of the enemies were harder and there was like more puzzles. I think what we got is pretty good though. I think it's a pretty good final dungeon. I just think it could have been a little bit better. It's still cool though. So we got a stamp from that chest. It's pretty cool, you have to backtrack on yourself on a higher up ledge. It's a pretty cool mechanic. So far as a final dungeon, I think it's good. I think it's a little bit underwhelming, difficulty wise, with enemies. It may just be because I have all the hidden skills and I got 20 hearts on this file, but even if you're playing through and you weren't collecting heart pieces, you'd probably have, I think you'd have 11 hearts at this point. And you'd probably have most of the hidden skills if you're playing through. You'll probably have more than 11 hearts because you'll probably be collecting some heart pieces. So it should be pretty easy at this point. And you'll have loads of potions probably stacked up because you'll know it's the final dungeon, so you'll probably stack up things like fairies and blue potions and all that. So the combat shouldn't really give you any trouble with this game. Right here there's another combat section. I think there's so much combat that like they could have put in more puzzles, but they decided to stick with combat, which is okay, but I think if they had made some of the combat sections more memorable and harder, it would have been better. Like most of this combat is just putting force fields around Link and then just having the enemies run in. Maybe if they had the like enemies in certain situations, or it was like mini boss refights, things like that, it could have been better. So there we go. Once we take out all the enemies, the force field will go down, so it takes a little while to take them all out. And I don't get why they're throwing the same enemies at us. Like we've fought these loads of times. Like we can easily beat these. I know that we're having to fight loads of them at once, but we've proved that we can fight them. Why don't you throw things like armoured lithops at us? Or just, I don't know, Argoruks. Anything. But no, they throw the same enemies. So we're going to head this way now, and there is another gate that we can open. Now there's not many like hidden chests in this area. Like there's not like little chests in the corner you need to worry about. If you just stick to the main path in each room, you should be able to get all the chests pretty easily. So yeah, don't worry too much about that. If you go over here, there's actually something pretty cool. So this is actually a fight that we have to do, and it is with King Bulblin. So if you've not played the main story, you encounter him throughout the game like 3 times. You have to fight him on the Bridge of Eldin, you have to fight him when you're defending the milk truck, and you have to fight him in the Bulblin hideout. And the final fight is with him here. I think it's a pretty cool 1v1 fight. It's a little bit like the fight next to Arbiter's Grounds, to be honest. It's very similar to that one with the style you have to fight him in. I think it is a little bit easy for one of the final fights with him, and I wish there was more going on. I think it's pretty cool though how he is in the game again, because it could have been easy for them to just forget about him even existing, but it's cool we have to fight him one last time, and it makes this fight memorable because it's like the last encounter you'll have with him. So there we go, you just have to keep fighting him, and it's a little bit like a Dark Nut with the way you have to fight him, because he's only vulnerable in certain places. You sometimes have to wait for him to attack. He can do a lot of damage though, and he does have a lot of health, so I do think that's cool. Like, look at that, I think he deals 3 hearts each hit. So if you get hit a few times, you can easily die from this. And if you're wearing the blue tunic, you take way more damage. So yeah, he does actually have a ridiculous amount of health, so I will give that to him. He is pretty good in that way. I remember when I was younger, when I was playing this game, I did used to struggle with him for some reason, but I think he's not that hard now. I wouldn't say he's easy, but I wouldn't say he's like really hard either. He's memorable, he's cool. And he doesn't even die, he literally just surrenders at the last minute. I think that's I don't know what to think of that. They could have easily had him like die, but I don't know, maybe they wanted to keep him alive for something else, but oh well. See ya. He's gone. So he gave us a key at least, so that's where the main key is from. You can get the key from the graveyard obviously and skip ever doing this fight, but obviously I recommend doing this because it's a quicker key to get, and it's just a memorable part of the story, having to fight him one last time. So there we go, we're going to go into this chest here, it's just 20 rupees. If anything, coming from that like entrance over there, you may think that chest has got a key in it, but no, it's him that gives you the key. I like the way this dungeon is actually designed, like aesthetically. I wish there was more to do in this dungeon in a way. Like, I wish you could like revisit this dungeon throughout the game and you can access certain parts later on, because it feels a little bit strange only being able to access it now, but I do like the castle style of it. Like, because I know in Ocarina of Time it's literally just like an interior castle. I'm going to talk about Zelda games before this game. I'm not going to talk about 2D ones as much. I know with the Ocarina of Time final dungeon, it's all inside and it's literally just trials, and it's really linear. It's like 6 trials you have to do in a really linear order. And with Wind Waker, it is basically in the Hyrule, and it basically was mini boss refights, and it was Phantom Ganon refights, and then you get light arrows, and then stuff like that. But I think with this dungeon it is pretty cool. We're going to be seeing more puzzles in the next episode, and I'm going to be showing off the interior of the dungeon. I'm just going to kill these birds, because I remember when I was trying to film the outro, because in outros I just look around and try and get a nice view of the map. But these birds kept annoying me, so if you like the video, please like the video and subscribe if you're new around here. Stay tuned for part number 2, because that's going to be out soon.